and welcome. I would first just like to apologise a little bit for being late. I had to go and pack because I'm flying to Sydney in a few hours' time. So I went and packed and I'm back again. What I would just love to do is tell you a little bit about my story, some of my experiences in living in the reality of the world in its present state and trying to keep that calm centre, which I often feel is one of the great skills of life today. I grew up in Melbourne, I think, as you've heard, and I think, like most who would come to a place like this, I was always interested in the search for truth, the search for God. And I went to university, but when I was just 20, I took time out and I wandered the world for some years. I often feel it was like my education. And where Australia is positioned in the world, in Asia, I spent time in Southeast Asia, time in India, time in the Middle East, right through Iran, Afghanistan, North Africa, Europe. But without a conscious thought, wherever I went, I ended up living in religious communities. I live with Sikhs in the Gurudwara. I live with Buddhist monks in a monastery in an island of Thailand. I lived with Muslims during Ramadan for quite a period of time. I went to India. I spent time at the Ganges, went to where the Dalai Lama lives, lived with some yogis in the mountains, you know. You can sort of get the feel of the journey. And I also spent time in a Christian community in Belgium. And also in England, I was working. I actually had a job in those days in the Royal Shakespeare Theatre Company. And it was in the mid-1970s. I was living in London. And the search was incredibly powerful. And what was really special for me was wherever you go, you hear nice ideas, you hear good philosophy, and it appeals to the intellect. And the intellect said, yes, this is true, this is what I want, this is right. But my big quest was, how do you translate it into your daily life and your inner experience? You know, how do you translate the belief into a real life experience? And even when you meditate, how do you translate just a faith in God into a real, genuine experience of God? This was really my quest. And I came across the Brahma Kumaris when I was just 22 years old, which is a very interesting group of people because it's the largest spiritual group in the world run by women. It has a very gentle fragrance, I would say. That's so lovely, Woody, thank you. and actually, you know, the way we work, I think it's when we see people, instantly we get a feeling, don't we? You know, people might say things, but we get a feeling from their face and their vibrations. And as soon as I saw the sisters, it was like I could feel they'd achieved something. There was a living spirituality in their life. And one of the things that I've often felt is that there's different forms of wisdom. And in this world, you know, we bow down, we pay allegiance to the intellectual ability, the ability to understand things. But the spiritual wisdom, I think, is a wisdom where we just take like one idea, like who am I, and just go deeper and deeper and deeper into these ideas. And when I began to meditate, I really found a wonderful method to really explore the depth of experience. And I think the more we go deeper into the true self, we create a power base in myself that is solid and stable as the world swirls around me. We live in this incredibly unpredictable and challenging world. And once I friend of mine was telling me about the Caribbean, where I'm sure many of you have been. I've only been once there. The Caribbean is famous for its good weather, but also famous for the typhoons, which come through. And once a huge typhoon just came up instantly, and a whole lot of ships were going through, and they started to get battered about, completely battered around. And one ship's captain decided that rather than try to steer out of the typhoon, he went into the centre of the storm. You know the calm eye in the centre of the storm. And he kept his ship in there for nearly 36 hours as the storm got less and less and less. And when they all arrived in port, his ship was less damaged than all the rest. And I think it's a great sort of wisdom for life in this world. We live in a storm, I think, everywhere on this planet. But how to find that calm centre in myself, I would say, is at the heart of spiritual wisdom. Not only find it, but sustain it in any company and in any situation. And this to me is living spirituality, if I can say. And, many times I think that there's a few conclusions when we look at the world today. First of all, there's no turning back. I think the world, the speed of life is going to get faster and faster. We're going to see more economic upheaval, social transitions. I think it's a reality. Seeing this reality, the second conclusion, I need a new approach in life. I need to think and act in a different way to cope with the atmosphere that we have in this world. And one thing which really changed me was a simple question someone once asked me. And they said, what do you have control over? Very simple question. Do you have control over the economy? Of course not. Do you have control over your colleagues or your boss? No. Do you even have control over your relatives? No. Ultimately, what do you have control over? My sphere of influence in life is my thoughts, my attitudes, my behavior, my actions. This is the sphere of influence. I can't change the world out there, but I can change my reactions to the world out there. This is spirituality. Spirituality is different because today people want to control others' behavior to suit me. I want to control situations and outcomes to suit me. But spirituality says, no, I begin to adjust my inner world to deal with this external environment in which we're living. So we need a new wisdom. And I think that intellectual ability is a very important wisdom which enables me to understand the world around me, I earn an income, and all those sorts of things. But when I get stressed, when the storm of life takes me over, does it help? I don't think so. So that's a form of wisdom which is important for the external world. We have emotional intelligence which helps me deal with loving relationships with others. But spiritual intelligence, I often feel if emotional intelligence is the intelligence to have a loving relationship with others, spiritual intelligence is the wisdom to have a loving relationship with me. And as a part of that, a deep realization of who I am. The first relationship in life is with me. My own experience is if that is dysfunctional, it pollutes each and every aspect of my life. And this relationship is the key to opening a calm center within myself. And I have this image for myself these days that my mind is like a calm pond inside. Just imagine your mind is like a still pond of pure, crystal clear water. This is my natural state of my mind. It's a sacred place inside my mind. And really, spirituality is to keep that sacred place calm and still, because it does beautiful work to heal you and influence influence the atmosphere around. But there's many gateways into this sacred place. What we hear words, we hear opinions, we absorb it, and my mind goes into turmoil of anger and hurt and feelings like that. I see things which are unjust and not right, and I allow it into my sacred space to disturb that calm center, the eye of the storm. Even in a split second, the wonder of the human mind, that you can travel back 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and experience every emotion of a situation. So your memory bubbles up into your sacred space and disturbs your sacred space. Wisdom is to be a part of life. I see, I hear, I remember, but I don't let it dominate this place within. And this is such a state of spirituality. And to me, I think all of us are facing many crises. And probably the first of the crises in the world, the economic and the social and all that sort of stuff. And these are things of work, finances, health, and so on. And I would say that the first step to remaining stable as the world swirls around me is to know who I am. And in recent years, the way I've been thinking about this, because the first step, I believe we can really know God when I first know who I am. And there's no doubt the more I know God, I can know who I am as well. But the first step in this journey to knowing who I am is to begin to observe that in each of us there's three personalities. And I'd say two of them really disturb me, keep my mind agitated, aggravated, in upheaval. But one of them really cools me down to a point where I can remain so still and calm. The first personality is the facade I present to life, the image. And this personality compares with everyone. And I call it the eye of arrogance or the eye of superiority. And this eye has a whole thinking, feeling structure inside. It thinks, it compares and it thinks, I am better, I know more, I am right. That thing, the way I see life is the right way. But when it filters into my emotions and feelings, when this personality is ruling my inner world, anything but calm, I feel easily insulted, disrespected, not valued, excluded, sensitive, all these things that disturb my inner world. Many times when we feel those emotions, mostly we project it onto you. The blame game kicks in and I start to project the whole of the inner disturbance, the loss of calm to you and your behavior and your attitudes. Spiritually, I would say that blame is the ultimate ignorance. When my mind even or my mouth is blaming somebody, I've stepped out of truth, I'm under the illusion, because this sacred space is my responsibility. And I can't really blame anyone else for its state or the quality of my thinking or my peace inside. And so, when the eye of arrogance is ruling, these emotions, the ego accepts sorrow, the ego feels insulted, the ego feels disrespected. But a spiritual person doesn't blame. The spiritual person says, I am responsible for how I feel. It's actually my sacred space and takes responsibility to bringing me back into my calm center once more. But that first eye is really just a front for the most powerful eye that dominates our world today. And this is I call the vulnerable eye. Behind that confident me, I'm out there, I look good, I'm really confident, but behind it, I feel really vulnerable and scared and frightened sometimes. This eye has a whole thinking, feeling structure too. This eye thinks others are better, others know more, others are right, others don't love me, others don't respect me, others don't value me. And when it comes into my feelings, when this eye rules my inner system, and this is the